Hi everybody, Leafy Concern here. Let's just talk for a moment about On Being Blue, a philosophical inquiry by William Gass. Godine Nonpareil Books, published in around 1991 as a reprint of the original edition that came out in 1976. 1095, a work of philosophy. He doesn't really talk about philosophers until the end, and when he does, he talks about Berkeley and a few other big names, and he sort of makes a point of cycling through their thoughts on boundaries, outlines, colors, smears. I own a few other books by William Gass. This is the beautiful collection of stories that was the last piece of fiction he published during his lifetime. This is the William Gass book that I'd read sort of at length before getting to On Being Blue. I highly recommend this one, and this acquainted me not only with how Rilke was a relatable figure, but also with how C.F. McIntyre, my favorite translator of Rilke, was bad, and also with how much William Gass likes Rilke. I highly recommend this book. I knew from reading Gass's introduction to The Making of Americans that he has a really maniacal fondness for Gertrude Stein and has many different ways of making sense of her. The sentence theory, marvel at that. After reading this introduction, you get a lot of insight into how he likes to construct his sentences fetishistically when he's making his essays and novels and so forth. There are videos online in which William Gass talks about his favorite sentences from Tender Button, this book, and he does mention Tender Buttons in On Being Blue in the context, I think, of things that are perceived versus existing. William Gass also wrote the introduction to the Recognitions, and for the longest time, the only thing I'd read out of this book was that introduction. And my favorite parts in it were the times where William Gass would just talk about how cool it was that anybody could write a sentence that was weird. And I thought that that was really inspiring then, but those were actually the parts of On Being Blue that I found the most tedious. I think that whenever I've put a book by William Gass in my backpack and taken it out and read an essay from it somewhere in Madison or Chicago or elsewhere, I've preferred the writing he does that explains how he reads people that are difficult to read. I love the way he can grant you access to writers you didn't really understand or enjoy as much before, and Gertrude Stein is an example of this kind of writer. Another couple of writers he does this for is Colette and people like Hawkes and Elkin. One of the definitions of blue that's most important to this book is the definition of lewd or pornographic in some way. He makes it very clear that Lawrence is a, quote, sad case of a failure to do this well, and he implies that Philip Roth does a pretty piss-poor job. He comes down on the side of loving Beckett's treatment of the blue, his oblique treatment of the blue, Colette's, of course, and also James Joyce's. I know that Gass is a fan of The Anatomy of Melancholy, which is a book I haven't read on this channel, but I'd love to read it soon. And his book strikes me as an attempt to write something like Thomas Browne, and I know that Browne and Sebald are two of the only authors I ever bring up ever, but you know, I really do feel like this genre of book pretty much entirely poetic and also highly arguable. Although it's not arguable what Gass says about blue and green having the widest emotional range. Blue does have a very wide emotional range, and it can be the sky, but it can also be heaven. And ways of depicting blue in art as a ratio are interesting. It's important to him to mention these big philosophical discussions about the importance of content versus outline. And one of the functions of On Being Blue is to basically recommend that you read books like Kandinsky's Concerning the Spiritual and Art with an extremely critical eye, seeking to purify all of the little inconsistencies in it and also enjoy its grand statements about the behavior of certain shapes that are colored yellow. So there's a little bit about On Being Blue. Please read it and enjoy it or whatever, and leave a comment on this video if you'd like to. Have a good day. Bye.